Alrighty, so one thing that will help us is let's review some exponentials, some rules of exponents that you probably should have learned at some point, but perhaps you've forgotten or you never learned it to begin with, and that's okay. Okay, so first one. Okay, if you have two exponents, okay, they have to have the same base, like so, and if they are being multiplied, you add the exponents. Okay, so in this case, if you have x to the m times x to the n, it equals x to the m plus n. Okay, like so. If x to the third times x squared. That gives you x to the fifth. Conversely, if you are dividing, you get x to the m divided by x to the nth, so we have x to the m minus n. Okay, if you have an exponent being raised to an exponent, okay, that is when you would multiply. So x to the m times, or raised to the x to the nth, will give us x to the m times n. Okay. Negative exponents. Okay, you move to the bottom of the fraction. Okay, so this is probably one of the more difficult ones that people struggle with, but anytime you have a negative exponent, okay, we don't like to have that, so we change it move it to the bottom of a fraction. So like x to the -4 would then become 1 over x to the 4th. Okay, anything raised to the 0 power is just 1. Doesn't really matter what it is. Anything raised to the 0 power is always going to be 1. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so today what we're going to talk about is referred to as curve fitting. Which means we're going to find the equation of an exponential that goes through 2 points. Okay. So we'll have to use some of the things we've learned in the last couple chapters, okay, to help us out. Okay, so in this example, we're asked to find the equation of a line that goes through the point 0.07 and 356. Okay, so in this case, we're being given the y-intercept, which makes our life a lot easier. Okay, because if you recall, we have y equals a times b to the x as our exponential function, okay, where a is whatever our y-intercept is. So in this case, it's 7. Okay, but we can figure that out even if we plug these in for x and y, because what we get is 7 equals a times b to the 0 And remember, anything raised to the 0 power is just 1. Okay, so we know we have an A value of 7. Okay, but again, if you're ever asked to find out if you're given the y-intercept, okay, it makes everything a lot easier. If not, it's okay. So now if we use this second point, we plug it in for x and y along with a equals 7, we get 56 equals 7 times b cubed. All right, now we're just solving for b, so we divide by 7. 8 equals b cubed. Take the cube root of 8, which ends up just equaling 2. So now we have our equation y equals 7 times 2 to the x. Okay. So being able to find the cube root or the fourth root or whatever you may be looking for, depending on what calculator you're using, could be a little difficult. Okay, on this one, okay, if you hit the math button, it kind of gives you the third root right there. All right, even if not, if you go down to 5, that kind of lets you plug in. You can take whatever, you can take the root of whatever you want. Okay, but in this case, cube root of 8 equals 2. Okay, if I was trying to do it on my phone, okay, they have the third root button right there, but if not, they have the y raised to the x button as well. Cube root of 3, how would you do it on this, I wonder? No. No. Yeah. So you go 8, that button, and then 3 and hit equals. And that gives you that value there. So again, depending on what calculator you have, obviously there's an infinite amount, but I can show you on your calculator if you need me to. All righty, let's look at a couple more where we're not given the y-intercept. Okay, so here we have -1, -2, and 3, -162. Okay, so we're not given the y-intercept at this point. Makes it a little bit more difficult, but we'll be just fine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to plug both of these equations in, or both these points into the equation. So first one, -2 equals a times b to the -1. And over here we get -162 equals a times b cubed. Okay, so we're going to want to do basically what we did last chapter, which was solving systems of equations. So we want to get a variable on a side by itself. So if we take a look at this first one, I want to divide both sides by b to the negative 1. Okay, so now I have a equals negative 2 divided by b to the negative 1. Okay, and we don't want negative exponents, so to make it positive, we move it to the top. So we have a equals negative 2 times b to the first power. So now we're going to take that, and just like we did last chapter, we're going to plug it in for that a there, right? Substitution. So we get negative 162 equals negative 2 times b to the third. You can leave the 1 up there if you want. You don't really have to. So now negative 162 equals negative 2. Remember, if we have two exponents like this and we're multiplying them, we add the exponents. So this becomes negative 2 times b to the fourth. Divide both sides by negative 2. So now I have 81 equals b to the fourth. Take the fourth root of both sides. B ends up equaling 3. Now I got to plug that back in and solve for A. Which gives me negative 6. So to draw that, I get y equals negative 6 times 3 raised to the x. Pretty cool, right? Nice. All right, I'll do another example here. Okay, so we plug them into the equations. First one, 1.75 equals a times b squared. Okay, plug this one in, 28 equals a times b to the negative 2. Okay. If we want, we can make this positive right now. Earlier, we divided by first, but let's just say we want to make this positive from the get-go. we just turned it into a divided by b squared. All right, we move it to the bottom of the fraction. Now it becomes positive. Okay, which makes it a little easier as well, because now we can multiply both sides by b squared, and we get a equals 28 times b squared. That we would then plug into our other equation. So 1.75 equals 28 times b squared times b squared simplify our exponents. B squared times b squared gives us b to the fourth. Divide both sides by 28. Okay, 1.75 divided by 28 equals 1/16. Just take my word for it, or put it into a calculator if you don't believe me. Okay, so now we take the fourth root of both sides. Okay, and our b value ends up being 1/2. Okay, you can plug that into a calculator. And again, fourth root of 1 divided by 16. So it just gives us 1/2. Take this, plug it in, solve for a. A equals 28 times 1/2 squared. One half squared is 1/4. 28 times 1/4 gives us an a value of 7. Ta-da. So we get 7 times 1/2 raised to the x. All right, I'm going to have you try a couple on your own here. First one, I'll give you the y-intercept. Second one, I will not. Okay, so try these on your own. All right, so on the first one here, Okay, you're given the y-intercept, so it makes it a little easier because if we plug in this first part, 3 equals a times b to the 0. If we recall, anything raised to the 0 power is just 1. So really it's 3 equals a times 1, or just a equals 3. As we plug in the values on the second equation, we get 75 equals a times b squared. And we can go straight to plugging this in. So 75 equals 3 times b squared. Divide both sides by 3. 75 divided by 3 is 25. Then we take the square root of both sides. So we get a b value of 5. So our equation is then y equals 3 times 5 to the x. Okay, a little more complicated on the second one because we're not given our y-intercept. So if we plug in both of these equations, or both of these points, we get 18 equals a times b squared. And we get 54 equals a times b cubed. So from here, we need to get a on a side by itself. Okay, it really doesn't matter which one you want. You can either divide both sides by b cubed here or divide both sides by b squared here. I'm just going to divide both sides by b squared. So I get 18 divided by b squared equals a. I'm going to take that, I'm going to plug it in for a over here. So 54 equals a divided by b squared times b cubed. Okay. One way you can write this to kind of help simplify, if I have 3 b's on top and 2 on the bottom. On top, I have 18 times b times b times b. On the bottom, b times b, right? B squared, b cubed up top. These cancel, these cancel. I'm left with 54 equals 18b. Divide both sides by 18. B just ends up equaling 3. Okay, my fun game of arrows here. Now I'm taking B, plugging it in for that over there, so that I have 18 divided by 3 squared for A. 18 divided by 9 just gives me 2. So I get y equals 2 times 3 to the x. Ta-da!